everyone, welcome to the latest edition of Liquidware Chats. In this episode, I talked to Gary Taylor, who is the leader in desktop virtualization for Kyndryl. We talk about Gary's career in EUC, and then we delve into the topic of application delivery and why is it still so complicated in 2024? So we take a look at that, and then Gary talks about dynamic applications and how Kyndryl have adopted a strategy to use modern methods of delivering applications. Then we finish as usual. We look at how the impact of AI on EUC, and I get Gary's views around that topic. Really hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks very much. Hey, Gary, how's it going?
Very well, thank you very much. Good to talk to you again, James.
Yeah, it's been a little while considering we used to talk on a weekly basis in our previous roles. So yeah, no, it's great to see you again. Gary, so just to kind of kick us off, I wanted to talk a little bit about your roles within EUC or how you even came to be in the wonderful world of EUC.
Okay, that's an interesting question. So I guess, all of my roles pretty much since I started work have been, in EUC, starting off many years ago, working in hardware and moving through to, developing into working into the software side of things. But I guess more relevantly, when we talk about desktop virtualization, late 90s, Citrix brought out this product called WinFrame. And essentially, a company I was working for at the time wanted to be able to give their Unix customers the ability to run Office within the Unix environment, so to speak. So we started. They needed somebody to do that kind of install and thing, and
yeah,
that's where that all started. So there was products like WinDD and Intrigue that I would then stick on top of WinFrame, and then pretty much every role that I've done since then has involved desktop virtualization in one form or another. But more relevantly, I guess, it kind of developed into when I was at Hewlett Packard. I'd been developing and installing desktop virtualization solutions, typically based on Citrix, and essentially designing them and installing them and testing them for a number of years. And I moved at HP into doing some pre-sales, and then eventually, into sales, and then finally over into being an offering manager for HP. So, well, actually, I cut out the stage of me being an offering architect for the environment, which that came first, and then developed on to me being the offering manager, so to speak. And I've done that role at HP. I've done it at HP Enterprise, DXC, of course, and then a wider role that I had at Capgemini, but included that, and now I've moved on to Kyndryl and essentially doing that offering manager, leader of workplace virtualization for Kyndryl. So yeah, that's a cut down version.
yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah, no, it's good to get some background, and obviously, I've known you since your Capgemini days. So, but just kind of. So the main topic we wanted to talk to today about is all around application delivery. And I suppose the starting point is, why is it still so complicated in 2024? Like, what's the deal? It's like, I'd really like to get your perspective on that, because it's baffling that we are still dealing with the same issues we've been dealing with for the last 20 years, as far as I can see. And we have so many other technologies, including, so many different variations, and still it seems to be an issue. Now, I know things have got better, but it still seems to be the root of most issues within EUC.
In a way, I almost feel like you've asked the wrong question, right? I mean, in a way, right? And forgive me, I'm going to answer your question, by the way, James, right? But why hasn't desktop virtualization become the big thing that everybody's been predicting for the last sort of 10 plus years? Why every year, as somebody said, "Look, this is the year of VDI," and then everybody on this, listening to this,
I was talking to Brian Madden last week, so
yeah, well, there you go, right? So essentially, every year people have been saying this is the year, and it hasn't been, and this is the year, and it hasn't been. COVID kind of pushed people more into this direction, perhaps than anything else, but still, really hasn't happened. And I think the answer for me is that it's so complicated. is the truth, right? I mean, ultimately, it's all down to the apps anyway. We all know that, right? It's all about the apps. People aren't so worried about necessarily having a desktop per se, a Microsoft-based desktop. They just want to be able to run those key apps, and that's pretty much always been the case since
Yeah.
virtualization started, in my view, right? And of course, there are some, cases where users do need to have a full desktop. I get that, but it really is because they want to run certain apps within that environment, so to speak. But actually getting an app into a desktop virtualization solution is really tricky. I mean, typically most customers have like an environment where let's say you've got gold images, if you like. So you'll have a pattern of a certain number of apps that run within that gold image, key apps.
Yeah.
Usually, I know it's maybe 10 apps up to 20, something along those lines. And if they need an app that's not in that particular image, maybe they've got a second gold image that they get another app from, right? So you've got a number of different gold images, if you like, that most customers will have. Now those images historically have been managed by Configuration Manager.
Yeah.
So you're getting things packaged, and packaging takes time to do that packaging and testing. So essentially, you're getting everything packaged. You're then getting it into a gold image. You're keeping that image up to date, and of course, that also requires a ton of testing on top of that as well, right? So every time let's say I've got 10 apps within a particular image, every time I need to update one of those apps, I'm going to have to test those other apps, because if they're mission critical and I've done some sort of install, changed the DLL, and something no longer works, then that's a big issue, right? So
Mm.
so the whole management of those gold images is cumbersome, it's complicated, and it's expensive, and that, in my view, is the reason why we haven't really seen the year of VDI, so to speak. But that kind of brings us on nicely to why things could be different now, right? And
Mhm.
I believe they are, right? Which is products like FlexApp, as an example, dynamic application provisioning, in my view, is how I
Yeah.
would describe that kind of app.
Hmm.
That essentially allows me to abstract an app from that gold image. Typically, you'd do that with all the apps within the gold image, of course, right? But it allows you to abstract it and manage the app completely separately. So in other words, if I do an update to an app that's in FlexApp, because it's in its own, it's kind of ring fenced in a way. I know it's not in its own sandbox per se, right? But
Hmm.
it is
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of ring fenced. Um, Although you still need to do a degree of testing to make sure apps haven't been affected and such. It just simplifies the whole process. The whole packaging side of things is significantly quicker. I don't have to reboot servers to be able to take an application offline and bring another application online. So the whole process has been simplified, and to some degree, you could even argue you've increased the security of the environment, because I can update. I don't have to. Most customers have to wait, maybe once a month, late on a Sunday night. They'll do an update
Oh yeah,
afterwards, and
they
a
have to
whole
go
week of
through the
testing.
whole change board process and get
Exactly.
it changed and submit. Oh yeah, I've had some painful experiences with that in my day. I'm sure you have as well, Gary. When
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it is a reality for customers that they have to do this kind of things, and I
Yeah.
suppose that's one of the things, as you said, Flex app helps with, because you simplify that process. You don't have to update the entire golden image, which potentially has 50 apps, and there might be interdependencies between the apps, and if you fix one, you might break another. You can just do these changes to the individual applications, because that's the way they're managed. So yeah, I definitely agree with you around dynamic applications, and in particular around FlexApp, and in fairness, we're seeing a lot of more adoption of FlexApp. I suppose one of the other areas we're kind of seeing is that we complement where MSIX is not quite as developed as people would need. So you can utilize for some applications MSIX, but at the same time, then you have FlexApp to be able to back it up and get those applications which you're not able to utilize MSIX with.
Absolutely. I mean, MSIX App Attach is a great product at the end of the day, or even just MSIX App Attach. You can use it as a kind of sandbox type of environment if you want to, right? But MSIX App Attach essentially has similar capabilities in some ways to FlexApp, but FlexApp is more powerful. It's got more different trigger mechanisms, different ways you can trigger it than MSIX App Attach. So
yeah, exactly. That's the thing with FlexApp. We've so many different ways you can trigger an application. You can decide who gets the application, when they get it, what device they're utilizing, all these various different variables that you can apply to FlexApp. I just said that just as well as makes it more flexible. Pardon the pun. It does increase the security because you have all those controls around access to the application, and I suppose from a security and a licensing perspective as well, because obviously that comes into it as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. And so I know you yourselves, you've been looking at kind of this kind of more modern approach at Kyndryl.
Yeah.
So, what sort of headaches are you seeing with traditional delivery methods that you don't see with say utilizing FlexApp?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to sort of the management of the image at the end of the day. I mean, this is a modern way of managing of applications and such. The traditional way of doing it, as we mentioned, really, I mean, you've got that change board, you've got that maybe once a month in the early hours of the morning we can do a test. And of course, if there is a problem that hasn't been picked up in the testing, and you need to roll back for one reason or another, that's also quite a cumbersome process in some cases, right? So that's another way in which, if I've got to roll back an app in FlexApp, it's a few seconds to do it. I can essentially just disconnect the app that's on there and revert to the previous version of the app, right? So even if there are issues, the whole process of reverting becomes much quicker as well, right? So I guess it's the whole process really around the management of applications, the life cycle of applications, if you like, that's improved by using dynamic application provisioning. So I mean, this is the reason that we kind of brought have developed this as part of the desktop virtualization solutions here at Kyndryl. And it's absolutely a game changer for customers to be able to leverage this.
Yeah, because if you think of like the time savings and potentially cost savings as well, because if you have to pay someone to do it, generally a change like that would be done, as you said, on a Sunday night. That's an on-call fee, all these kind of things. So there is economic and efficiencies there that you don't get with other kind of systems. So yeah, I can see why it would be a game changer for customers.
I think one of the other things is, I mean, storage. I mean, if you take, I mean, once you've built up a gold image, it's typically as many gig in size, that gold image, and typically you'll run up different versions of that image, right? So you'll have, let's say you've got up to, I don't know, say 20 users that can run on a particular VM, and then at that particular point you may scale up to a second VM and so on and so forth. Each time you need another X number of gig for that, to connect back to for that gold image in each case. Whereas when you move to a more modern style with this, your gold image is really just the operating system and the FlexApp agents, if you like. And that's much smaller. And you only really need one version of the app, so to speak, one VHDX essentially is what it is of that particular app. And then you connect any of your different virtualization solutions through to that VHDX. And so it's only the single version of that storage, right? Rather than it multiplying by each of the gold image, you've potentially just got it once in each case, right? So again, you're saving a lot of money storage. You're saving money on things like the packaging in the first place. I mean, whereas typically simple, medium, complex apps, it may take a day, 2 days, 3 days to package an app, do all the
Yep.
testing and such. Once you're packaging something with FlexApp, typically it's minutes. It's just the capture process. Run the install, stop the capture process, and you've got it captured. Now, of course, I'm simplifying things a little bit here. There's other things that wrap around that, of course, right? So it is just as simple as that. But I think you're getting a flavor for the fact that it's cheaper and quicker to do that packaging process typically. And then obviously, all the management that goes around it is also simplified, right? So all these things help bring down the cost of virtualization, but at the same time, bizarrely, improve the experience for end users at the same time. So it's kind of a win-win solution that you end up with, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's one of the reasons we kind of, we have our whole suite of solutions, and FlexApp is very much how you deliver decks, because applications have a huge component of decks, because people they can't have a user experience if their applications aren't working. So I just was curious about, has there been any applications where you go, no, that's never going to work, and you actually managed to get it working with Flex? Have you come across any applications that you were kind of surprised that you were able to package it and not have major issues with it?
To some degree, James, you're asking the wrong person, right? Because as you know, right, I'm now an offering manager of sorts.
Absolutely, yeah. No,
But
I just
I
thought
don't
maybe
do
one of
that
your
now.
team has come across a particular application, or
We've seen things like CAD type programs that have been
yes,
packaged
yeah.
into the FlexApp, which again, when you think of the complexity and the size of those type of programs, you think that probably isn't going to work well, is it? And it does, right? So that's been a bit of a surprise, right? But I'm not going to claim to have done those myself.
Oh,
But
no, I'm not. I was just talking more in general,
yeah,
just to be interesting for people to hear. But yeah, the CAD ones we've heard as a use case that a lot of people have been kind of like, no, it's never going to work, and
yeah.
then like, whoa, actually, it did. It absolutely did. So
I think
so yeah.
there may be apps that you might choose that it isn't necessary to actually package in the first place. So things like Office, for example, because you can treat that a little bit like the operating system itself. So
Yeah.
there's certain things maybe you don't necessarily need to package, but
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know.
yeah,
I agree. Particularly like things like Office, obviously
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. Okay, and in terms of application delivery, or what do you think needs to change further to really kind of take this to the next level of kind of efficiency, cost savings, all of that kind of thing? What does application delivery in the future kind of look like to you?
Well, again, really interesting question because I'm actually writing a blog on this at the moment, which will be coming out soonish, actually. But I guess the key phrases of the moment, the things that everybody's talking about at the moment are AI, and to some degree still machine learning, right? But so where are we going beyond just the dynamic application provisioning? And I think things like intelligent resource allocation, right? So, for example, you've got a user, and maybe we're straying into your later question as well here a little bit to some degree, James, right? But
We can just go with it. It's fine.
but
All good.
but yeah, I say intelligent resource allocation. So, say you've got a user that typically uses some simple applications during in a particular month, and maybe at the end of the month, you need something a little bit more powerful to be able to run an end of month kind of thing that he does as
Excel
well.
spreadsheet.
Exactly, right. Something along those lines, right? So
That's actually a database.
yeah, well, basically that really should be as a database.
Should
But
be a database, but we all know
absolutely.
it's an Excel spreadsheet with 15. I remember like I worked at a company, and we were like the finance department, we're running these kind of end of month reports, and we had them on the Citrix environment, and they were just pulling all the resources, and we were just trying to figure out, we tried all sorts of different things, but that's the one example where,
Yeah.
they just need more resources. Actually, we had another internal financial app that we actually had a separate Citrix farm, and it was literally just used at the end of the month, and then it was like dormant. So
Yeah.
it was the old school equivalent of what you were going to talk about there.
Absolutely. But I mean, it doesn't make sense for that user to be running that expensive VM all the way through
Mm,
the month. There's no need for it. He doesn't need it most of the rest of the time, right? So why not just give him it when he needs it?
mm,
With AI, it could recognize that, oh, it's the last working day of the month. He's going to run this particular spreadsheet. So let's give
mm.
him a more powerful device or machine rather to a VM to run on
Yeah.
for this particular logon, and then revert back to a simpler machine next time he tries to use his solution, so to speak. So I think that kind of thing, you know, that's the kind of thing that comes next for me.
Yeah, I agree and disagree at the same. No, in some aspects, like if you think about what an AI is going to do, say
Mhm.
my example is this: like, say you've got a server with 20 people on it,
Yeah. Mhm.
and you say for the AI to manage it, what's the first thing the AI is going to do? It's
Well,
going to kick the users off potentially because then it's a more efficient server. So
yeah.
my thing with utilizing the AI in EUC is all around there has to be a human element to it. It can
Mhm.
make suggestions, and if it's like you said, pre-programmed, okay, end of the month they need a bigger class of VM switch to, but like the general kind of performance end of things, I think I'm still like I want someone to go pop up, pop up. Hi, this is this is the AI. I'm going
Yeah.
about to do that, and you're like, no, you're not.
Well, I mean, it
or
could be, you
or
could be
you
right.
can do that, but here's the
Yeah.
parameters you do that
Yeah.
within. So I think I don't like self autonomous AIs going off and managing things within EUC
Yeah.
environments because there might be, it might say there might only be a CPU spike for millisecond, less than a minute, and it tries to kill something off, and then it could
Yeah.
return to normal. So yeah, I don't think we're quite there yet with where we are with the AI.
But in your case, though, in the example you gave there, James, I mean, where you've got several users that they're sharing the same VM, you can still do the same kind of thing because it just could be a more powerful machine. Maybe they all need to run that extra spreadsheet, or maybe they don't, right? But
Sure,
you could
sure.
still do something there. But I think I tend to agree with you where I'm saying it could do that. I still think I want some human interaction on that. Maybe somebody within IT or higher up the management chain would say, it would say it recommends it, and we would say yes, we accept that that's a good thing to do,
Yeah,
right? So I
exactly. I
think I
think
agree
I
with that.
think I think that workflow has to
Yeah.
have some sort of human interaction in it with a lot of these things. And it's not just autonomously going off and allocating, deallocating resources as it wishes. Yeah, I agree with that. And do you see any kind of it seems we're talking about AI, any kind of developments that help in when it comes to application development? I had an interesting conversation actually in our last podcast, and we talked about the packaging of applications. That's almost like an art form.
Yeah.
There's a lot of creativity there when you think about it, and that's not generally where I think more on the testing side is where I would see AI coming into it, because doing that whole QA thing, which is tick boxes essentially. Does it
Yeah.
do this? Does it do that? Whereas the actual packaging, you sometimes have to get pretty creative to get these things to work. So
Yeah.
so do you see something like a kind of AI enhanced QA process, or like a lot of companies have their DTAP will be run by AI or something like that?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I think stage one, and many, not that many organizations do this today, is some sort of automated testing, whether that be some sort of smoke test to make sure the app looks like it's going to work, or whether it's a more scripted kind of test that goes through certain features, those kind of key mission critical features and such within a particular app. I think that kind of comes first, but I don't see any reason why that wouldn't then go on to develop on to be an AI that could do that testing for you. Because quite often, you know yourself that historic in the past. Let's take Microsoft as an example. They'd change the word the menus within Word, so that whereas it used to be under a certain area, it moved, certain features would
Mhm.
move to another part of the solution.
Yeah.
So would it make sense for an AI to be able to work out that this is what they were trying to test, but it's moved from one menu to another menu? I think so, right? So those kind of developments, I think, are
Yeah.
likely to come too.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree, especially, because when you're doing this kind of whole QA testing, there's so many deviations and variations that you have to look at. And, um, we're humans at the end of the day. Someone might overlook something or make a mistake, whatever. Whereas if it's just, I think that's the kind of areas where I really think AI can make a difference is
Mhm.
kind of in that kind of that testing, checkbox. Does that menu work? Is that menu where it should be? So on and so forth. And then getting all that, doing that across like 100 apps in like a space of 5 minutes, whereas opposed to would have taken weeks in the past. So just your whole deployment cycles gets shrunk completely down, and the efficiency, and probably your trust in it should as well increase because you've built in all that kind of efficiencies into the process. So yeah, I do feel we're kind of moving towards um not solving this application problem. I don't think we ever solve that, but definitely enhancing it to where it's a lot more streamlined.
Yeah, a lot more manageable. And I
Yeah.
think that'd be the way of putting it. I think the other area that you could add on to that, we're already seeing it, of course, with products from Microsoft and others, right? But the virtual assistants, AI based virtual assistant. Why wouldn't you get that within your desktop virtualization environment as
Yeah.
well, right? So and why it wouldn't necessarily be limited to what you get within, let's say, for example, within Microsoft's side of things. It could
No.
cover more widely the process of connecting through to an environment and working within that environment too. So I think that's another area that
Yeah,
we'll
you,
see.
you basically could have, instead of if contacting support directly, you could have a virtual chatbot, which potentially could be monitoring the system as well and be able to detect and remediate, in a very, again,
Yeah,
reducing that whole troubleshooting. Yeah, those are kind of areas I do see. I suppose, obviously, again, you could have it, look at it, identify it, but push something back to someone, say, okay, I'm about to do this, restart this service. And
yeah.
it's like, and then it goes, yes, you can proceed with that. But obviously you would have to make that a very quick process, because obviously you don't want delays by, someone waiting for it to take action or something like that. But yeah, no, I think those are areas where I see it as well. I foresee the whole kind of, provisioning of desktops and stuff. You're like Tony Stark with Jarvis. You say, I want 100 desktops in this cloud, pull these flex apps from that directory and publish to these set of users, and off you go. That
Makes
kind of thing.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, just probably, who knows with AI? It's all happening so quickly. It really, it could happen next year, or it might be take longer. But I do definitely see that. And yeah, but it just has so many wider implications.
It does.
Not just kind of the kind of areas, but I think around what we've been talking about. So, is there any, outside of kind of application delivery and monitoring, that is there any kind of thing where you think AI plus EUC, and you're like, oh yeah, that could really make a difference, or that we haven't kind of covered?
Yeah, one other area actually that stands out, I guess, which is security, right?
Yeah.
If James is logging on, for example, every day from Dublin, and he's logging on regularly from Dublin, and then for some reason or other he's logging on from another part of the world. I won't pick on any country in particular, but let's say he's logging in
Yeah.
from somewhere else. Is that right? Do we know that James is traveling? If the solution, if it's potentially you've traveled abroad for work, maybe it could recognize that. But but or even if you're doing something that's out of character, like downloading documents, just one after another, which you don't normally do from your company solution, so to speak, right? I mean, that kind of security side of things, it seems like a given that AI could really
Yeah,
do that and monitor that.
yeah. I was having a discussion with someone about this. We were talking about how there's been this controversy around Microsoft recall,
Yeah,
but there's also a wider discussion around technologies like that, and they're coming, whether you like it or not. It's going to be a reality. One of the things we talked about is like if your company said like, okay, we're going to implement X monitoring. You're going to be monitored. It's going to be an AI on your VDI. It's going to monitor everything 24/7. Or the number of hours you're logged in, not
yeah.
obviously 24/7 because no one works 24/7. That's ridiculous. But it says you can work like 4 days a week because you'll be so much more efficient. But you're going to be monitored the whole time. But to make up for this potential issues around security, privacy, all of this, we're going to double your salary. And we're like, who wouldn't take that offer? So I think potentially this we could see VDI use cases increasing as if you and I think there's a lot more to come. I wouldn't rule out VDI or DAS yet. It's a huge market. There's a lot of potential, especially with VDI together with with AI and VDI together.
Yeah.
I think still has huge potential and inroads for companies.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I think if we look further into the future, what's going on with virtualization, maybe at some point virtualization will kind of shrink away to some degree, but I think we're a number of years away from that still yet. And I think the reason for that might be because of apps no longer being installed into operating systems and such. Maybe we're just using apps as a service in the future and such, so maybe it doesn't matter so much at that particular time, right? But I completely agree. I mean, for the next 5, 10+ years, I mean, desktop virtualization will continue to be a key part for many organizations, right? And it will be used strategically, and actually maybe customers will move from one vendor to another vendor. Maybe they'll move to vendors that kind of suit them. And going back to the dynamic application provisioning that we were talking about earlier, I mean, that's an area that it doesn't really matter if I've got something packaged in in FlexApp as an example, and I want to move from vendor A to vendor B. It's made it a lot easier. It's
Yeah. No, and that's one of the beauties of FlexApp. We don't care. You can run it on prem. You can run it in the cloud. You can even turn it into a FlexApp one and push it to using Intune and push it to a bunch of remote devices, and those applications can run without access to the internet. So on planes, wherever, and it doesn't matter. So you have kind of that whole it kind of helps with that whole scenario.
Absolutely. I mean, it just makes it a flexible thing that I think it remains something that most organizations
we should have trademarked the word flexible.
Yeah, you should do.
I think it's impossible, but me and you've both used it about 4 times at this stage, so
absolutely
something to think about. I'll get on to our legal but no, probably not.
Gonna have trouble with that one, I think.
I think so. Yes. Just a random word in the English language. I want to trademark that. No. Yeah. Okay. So let me think. So I think we've done a good kind of overview of where we're at with application delivery and using dynamic applications, which gives, and then opening you up to all that kind of modern management, and it feels like it's going in the right direction.
Yes, I think so. I think customers that continue to work in a traditional way, I mean, obviously that will continue to work, traditional mechanisms for running virtualization. It's just going to be more expensive, and it's not as flexible as customers need it to be. It doesn't give, the user experience, I think, which is what it all comes down to at the end. If you want to get the best possible user experience, then you need to change and move to these new modern styles of virtualization, so to speak. So yeah, I think that's the way we're heading.
And do you see, just to kind of finish up and look at, there's been a lot of talk about how Windows 10 is coming end of life, but it seems like it shouldn't be a big issue for most applications. If they run on 10, they're likely to run on 11. And I don't know if you've had any, strategies around that or looked at it that, and I suppose it doesn't seem as a big a headache as it would have been in the past, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I don't think Windows 11 is a significant change from Windows 10.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a feature release of Windows 10. I wouldn't say that, right? But it's pretty similar to Windows 10. I mean, I'm aware of only one or two apps that I've heard of that don't run on Windows 11 that do run on Windows 10. But I mean, there are products out there, the application lifecycle products out there like AppCure that are able to do some sort of testing and find out, what's going to work and what isn't going to work. Remo 3 or another company that do a similar kind of thing.
Partners of ours.
Yeah, absolutely, right. But I mean, there are products out there, I guess what I'm saying, that can help.
Exactly. It's just if I was actually to think about the whole Windows 10 to Windows 11 issue, I see it more from a hardware perspective because of the requirements from Microsoft around a certain processor. Now, as we all know, there's hacks around that, but if you're a massive company with lots of devices, that's not applicable. Yeah, exactly. So that's more where I see it, as opposed to particularly around the application set. I think the bigger issues around, because say I think we're getting near something that a big hardware refresh, because so much hardware was bought during COVID, as we both know. Like every device that wasn't nailed down was bought or removed from wherever it was, and we had this massive hardware shortage, and now you would think we're coming near to a refresh cycle. Well, most companies, as we both know, there's lots of technologies out there that can extend the lifetime of those devices, and we should be doing that from a sustainability perspective. Absolutely. But not everyone does, and some countries have different attitudes towards sustainability than others. So but that for me is kind of the bigger challenge, is kind of that whole massive hardware refresh cycle that I think we have coming up probably in 2025.
Agreed. I think the other area, and I'm going to sound like I work for Liquidware now a little bit, right? But obviously there's AppV that's going end of life in a year, just over a year's time, isn't it? It's a year and a bit.
Yes, and just in case, and it is going away. Microsoft keeps saying this. It's not staying. Anyone who thinks that this is getting a reprieve, anything like that, not happening.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that FlexApp offers to be able to fill a lot of the different use cases that people have for AppV. Maybe not all of them, right? Because obviously sandboxing, that's not really a specialization of FlexApps per se, although you can do it to a degree. Right? I'm just saying that FlexApp is an answer for those customers, or can be an answer for those customers that are looking for some sort of way forward beyond a couple of years time. So I mean, that's another reason why we working with you guys, or partnering with Liquidware for FlexApp, so to speak, because we see it as a good option for some customers.
Yeah, and in fairness, we're seeing it a lot with our customers and prospective customers. They're utilizing AppV, and they're like going, okay, what am I going to do? And we've had some real large wins in different sectors. But one of the things, obviously, as well, is we have Profile Unity, and you can actually bring those AppVs into it and manage them. And we don't. It doesn't matter to us. We will support most formats within Profile Unity. So you have that kind of. I'm going to say that word again. I have to think of a different word. Of flexibility. It just comes so naturally. It's just like flexible. Yeah. So So yeah, no, I can see. I think the app fee thing is big because it's been so stable. It's been there for so long, but
Yeah. And it's
it
still
is
so heavily used. That's the
it
thing.
is. It
Very
is.
heavily used.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's really surprising how heavily
mm.
used it is actually, and at this stage, and this kind of is one of the things why you're kind of wondering why MSIX hasn't been successful to the way you would expect it. Um, but yeah, as I said, as FlexApp is there to kind of fill that gap with that free.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, as I said, we've seen a lot of success, and a lot of customers are coming to us, and their use case is around app fee. So yeah, no, I agree totally. Well, Gary, thank you very much for your time. It's been really
You're welcome.
insightful to get an idea of what you're doing with Kyndryl and your strategy for application delivery, and really enjoyed having you on. So thanks everyone for watching, listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.